You know how a slot machine works. You pull the lever, sometimes nothing happens. Sometimes coins spill everywhere. You never know which one it will be. That uncertainty is the whole trick. It is why people sit in front of those machines for hours, long after the money is gone. Your phone runs on the exact same trick. Every time you pull it out of your pocket, you are pulling a lever. Will it be a text from someone you love? A notification that means nothing? Nothing at all? You do not know. And that not knowing is why you check it 40, 80, 100 times a day. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why your brain is built to fall for this. And you will understand something Jesus said 2,000 years before a single phone existed that explains the whole problem better than any tech company ever could. Here is what most people get wrong about this. They think the problem is a lack of self-control. They think if they just tried harder, had more discipline, they could put the phone down and leave it down. But that is not quite it. Self-control was never designed to fight a machine engineered by thousands of the smartest behavioral scientists on Earth. Let that sink in for a second. The apps on your phone were not built by accident. They were built, tested, and refined by teams who studied exactly how the human brain forms habits. One of the men whose research became the blueprint for all of this was a psychologist named B.F. Skinner. Decades before smartphones existed, Skinner ran experiments on animals using a box with a lever. When the reward came every single time the lever was pulled, the animal would eventually stop pulling it. But when the reward came randomly, unpredictably, the animal would pull that lever compulsively, obsessively, far more than when the reward was guaranteed. Skinner called it a variable ratio reinforcement schedule. Product designers call it something simpler now. They call it engagement. So think about your phone again. Every scroll on social media is a pull of the lever. Sometimes the next post is boring. Sometimes it is the funniest thing you have seen all week. You never know. Every text notification is a pull of the lever. Sometimes it is your mother checking in. Sometimes it is spam. You never know. Your brain does not process this as annoying. It processes it as thrilling. Dr. Anna Lemke, a psychiatrist who researches addiction at Stanford, has spent years studying how digital rewards affect the same dopamine pathways involved in substance addiction. Her research found that the brain does not just crave the reward itself, it craves the anticipation of the reward, the wondering, the wanting to know. That is what keeps your thumb moving toward the screen, even when you told yourself you would only check it for 1 minute. Does that mean you are broken? No, it means you're human, and your humanity is being aimed at by people whose entire salary depends on your attention. Think about that for a moment. Somewhere, right now, there are meetings happening where grown adults debate the exact shade of red that makes a notification badge more urgent to your eye. There are teams whose only job is to make the next scroll feel 1% more irresistible than the last. You are not weak for struggling against that. You are outmatched by design. And once you see it that way, the shame starts to lift, because shame was never going to fix an engineering problem. But here is where this gets interesting, because this exact struggle, being pulled towards something that promises satisfaction but never quite delivers it, is not new. It did not begin with the iPhone. It is written all over the pages of the Bible, in language so precise it almost sounds like it was written for this exact moment. In the book of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 21, Jesus says this, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Read that again slowly. He is not talking about money in that verse. He is talking about attention, about devotion, about the thing your mind keeps circling back to, the thing your hands keep reaching for without you even deciding to reach. Jesus was pointing at a truth about the human heart that has nothing to do with the century you live in. Whatever holds your attention holds you. 2,000 years ago, the temptations looked different. Wealth, status, idols carved out of wood and gold, but the mechanism underneath was the same one running your phone right now. something outside of you promising a small hit of satisfaction, asking for a little more of your attention each time, until one day you look up and realize it has quietly become the center of your life.
Think about who Jesus was actually speaking to in that moment. He was surrounded by people worrying about food, clothing, security, the same anxieties that drive so much of your scrolling today. You check the phone because some part of you is anxious about being left out, anxious about missing news, anxious about what people think of the last thing you posted. Jesus was not offering a productivity tip in that chapter. He was diagnosing the human heart. He was saying, before you fix the behavior, look at what you are actually worshiping, because behavior always follows worship. Whatever you treasure most, your attention will find its way back to over and over, without you even choosing it consciously. That is not a metaphor about ancient wealth. That is a description of exactly what happens when your phone buzzes on the nightstand at 11 at night and your hand moves before your brain even wakes up.
There is another verse that fits this even more precisely. In 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 12, Paul writes, "I have the right to do anything, you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but I will not be mastered by anything." Sit with that phrase for a second. I will not be mastered by anything. Paul is not saying the thing itself is evil. He is saying something far more useful. He is saying, watch for the moment when something you have permission to enjoy quietly starts controlling you instead. A phone is not evil. Checking a message is not a sin. But when the pull becomes so strong that you cannot sit in a waiting room, cannot eat a meal, cannot lie in bed for 5 minutes without reaching for it, something has shifted from being used by you to using you. Ask yourself honestly, right now, can you sit through a red light without glancing at it? Can you wait for a friend at a coffee shop for 10 minutes without pulling it out? If the answer makes you uncomfortable, that discomfort is not condemnation, it is information. It is the same information Paul was pointing at 2,000 years ago when he separated what is permissible from what is mastering you. He was not writing a rule book. He was handing you a diagnostic question you could ask yourself for the rest of your life, about anything. Does this still answer to me, or have I quietly started answering to it? Here's the twist, though, the part almost nobody expects. You would think the Bible's answer to this would be discipline. Try harder, resist more, white-knuckle your way through it. But that is not actually the pattern Scripture gives you. Willpower alone was never the fix, not for ancient idolatry and not for modern notifications, because willpower is a limited resource that gets weaker the more you use it in a day. What Scripture offers instead is something almost the opposite of effort. It offers stillness. In Psalm 46, verse 10, God says, "Be still and know that I am God." Notice the order of that sentence. Not know, then be still. Be still first. Stillness comes before understanding. That is deeply counterintuitive in a world that tells you to hustle harder, optimize more, fill every silent gap with a scroll. The Bible is suggesting something almost radical by modern standards, that the answer to a mind hooked on stimulation is not more stimulation, more effort, more resistance. It is deliberately choosing silence, deliberately choosing to sit in a moment with nothing pulling at you and letting your mind remember what it feels like to simply be present. This lines up with something researchers have found too. Dr. Larry Rosen, a psychologist who has spent decades studying technology's effect on the mind, has documented something he calls phantom vibration syndrome, the sensation of feeling your phone buzz when it never actually did. Your brain, trained on constant interruption, starts manufacturing the interruption itself, even when it is not there. That is not a technology problem anymore. That is a nervous system that has forgotten how to rest. And the fix Rosen points toward looks strikingly similar to what that ancient psalm was pointing toward 3,000 years earlier. Structured stillness, deliberate disconnection, time with no lever to pull at all. Think about how strange that instruction would have sounded to the very first people who heard it.
A world without notifications, without feeds, without a single glowing rectangle demanding a response. And still, God said, "Be still," which tells you something important. This was never really about screens. Screens just made an old struggle louder, faster, and available in your pocket 24 hours a day. The human heart has always fought this battle between restlessness and rest. Your phone simply gave the oldest temptation on earth a battery life. So what does this actually look like today, in your life, tonight? It does not mean throwing your phone in a lake. It means noticing the pull for what it is. The next time your hand drifts toward your phone without a reason, without a real need, pause for 1 second and ask yourself what you are actually reaching for. Are you reaching for information, or are you reaching for the feeling of not knowing what is behind the next scroll, the same feeling that kept Skinner's animals pulling that lever long after the food ran out? Try this instead. Pick one window today, even 5 minutes, where the phone stays in another room. Not because it is bad, because you were made for more than reflex. You were made to sit in a room with your own thoughts, or with another person, or with God, and not immediately fill that space with noise. Be still first. Understanding follows.
You do not need to win this fight forever in one day. Nobody does. Start smaller than you think you should. One meal without the phone on the table. One walk without earbuds. One prayer where you do not glance down halfway through it. Each small window of stillness retrains something in you that constant stimulation had slowly numbed. It will feel uncomfortable at first. Boredom always does, right up until it turns into peace. Because here is the truth underneath all of this. Your phone did not invent your restlessness. It just found it and built a business model around feeding it. The ache to check, to scroll, to know what you might be missing, that ache existed in the human heart long before screens did. The Bible calls it by other names: idolatry, divided devotion, a heart that has not yet learned to be still. And the cure was never going to be a stronger filter or a stricter app timer, even though those can help. The cure was always going to be remembering who and what is actually worth your attention. So next time you feel your hand drifting toward that phone for the 10th time this hour, remember the slot machine. Remember that the uncertainty is the trap, not an accident. But remember something older and stronger than any app designer's playbook too. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The question was never whether something would hold your attention. Something always will. The only real question is whether you get to choose what that something is.